TSA took it. No warning, no refund, no appeal. The TSA rulebook isn't what most people think it is. It's not a fixed list you memorize once and travel with confidently forever. It's a living document, updated by policy shifts and new threat assessments that most travelers never hear about until they're watching an officer walk away with something they paid serious money for. In 2026, the gap between what people think is allowed and what actually clears the checkpoint has never been wider. You need this list before your next flight because agents aren't required to warn you in advance. Item number 10, oversized power banks and lithium battery packs. Your favorite travel power bank might be grounded permanently. This catches thousands of travelers off guard every year, and in 2026, enforcement has tightened considerably. TSA's lithium battery rules have always existed, but agents now use updated scanning technology that measures watt-hour ratings with far greater accuracy than older X-ray systems. The carry-on limit is 100 watt-hours per battery without airline approval and 160 watt-hours with prior written airline authorization. No exceptions at the checkpoint itself. Here's where it gets complicated. Large capacity power banks, especially those marketed as laptop chargers, frequently exceed 100 watt-hours. Many don't display their watt-hour rating prominently. Travelers buy based on milliamp-hour ratings, which don't translate intuitively. A 27,000 milliamp-hour battery at 3.7 volts already pushes 99 watt-hours. A 30,000 milliamp-hour unit clears the threshold entirely. What most people don't realize is that lithium batteries are also completely prohibited in checked luggage. So if you get flagged at the carry-on checkpoint and try to check the item, that solution is off the table too. The officer takes the battery. You don't get it back. There is no on-site appeals process. The 2026 wrinkle: several airlines operating in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia have updated their own policies to be stricter than TSA minimums, meaning an item that clears TSA could still be pulled at the gate by airline staff. Power banks are at least something travelers know to think about. The next item is something almost nobody considers a confiscation target, and it's sitting in medicine cabinets and gym bags across the country right now. Item number 9, supplement and medication powders. TSA is now flagging supplement containers, and the rules just changed. In 2024, the TSA formally updated its screening protocols for powders in carry-on bags. Any powder substance in a container larger than 12 ounces is now subject to additional screening, potential testing, and possible confiscation if it can't be cleared to the screener's satisfaction. That policy is now standard procedure at virtually every checkpoint in 2026. This affects protein powder tubs, pre-workout containers, powdered greens and nutritional blends, coffee grounds in larger bags, even certain powdered medications carried outside of original pharmacy packaging. That last word matters enormously. TSA agents are not pharmacists. They cannot identify a loose powder in a Ziploc bag as your prescribed medication. If your medication isn't in its original labeled container, with your name matching your boarding pass, you are creating a checkpoint problem that could end in confiscation and a significant delay. But here's the twist. This isn't purely a U.S. issue. The UK's Aviation Security Framework and Australia's Airport Security Guidelines have adopted parallel powder restrictions that are in some cases even more aggressive than TSA's current threshold. Canadian CATSA checkpoints have followed suit. The powder rules apply on both ends of your international journey. Keep supplements in original containers. Separate them in a clear bag at screening. For powdered medications, carry documentation from your prescribing physician. Supplements are a newer enforcement area. The next item has been confiscated for years, and travelers still get caught constantly because one specific loophole in the rule is almost never read correctly. Item number 8, alcohol over 140 proof. Bringing back that rare bottle? Read this before you pack it. Duty-free shopping at international airports creates dangerous false confidence. You purchased it airside. It's sealed. It has a receipt. For most alcohol, you're fine. But spirits above 70% ABV, 140 proof, will be confiscated at any subsequent security checkpoint. No discussion. This matters because of connecting flights. You buy a rare, high-proof spirit as a gift at an international duty-free. Your connection routes you through a second checkpoint, common at Heathrow, Dubai, and Tirana Pearson when passengers re-enter a sterile zone. At that checkpoint, the bottle is gone. The receipt is irrelevant. The duty-free seal is irrelevant. And this is where it gets crazy. There is no maximum quantity limit on alcohol between 24% and 70% ABV in carry-on luggage, provided it's in a retail sealed container within your airline's liquid allowance. The rule is purely about concentration. A liter of standard whiskey at 40% ABV is fine. A 200 milliliter miniature of a 75.5% Ibiza V spirit is not. Always check proof before purchasing high-end spirits internationally. Above 140 proof checked luggage with proper packaging is your only legal option. Alcohol rules are logical once you understand them. The next item is where enforcement starts feeling arbitrary, because it comes down entirely to how a single agent interprets one word in the policy guidelines. Item number 7, realistic prop weapons and replica firearms. It looks fake. TSA doesn't care. It's still getting taken. The TSA rule on replica weapons is one of the most misunderstood policies in the entire guidelines document. In 2026, it's enforced more strictly than ever because of the high-quality resin and die-cast replicas flooding the collector market. The rule is not about whether the item is functional, it's whether the item could reasonably cause alarm during screening. That phrase, reasonably cause alarm, gives individual officers extremely broad discretion. A Halloween prop revolver made of soft rubber might clear one checkpoint and be confiscated at the next. What most people don't realize is that this extends far beyond obvious toy guns. Detailed replica grenades, including keychain novelty items, combat knife replicas regardless of material, prop ammunition, even inert display rounds with zero mechanical function. Theatrical prop badges resembling law enforcement credentials. The collector market has grown significantly, and high-end display replicas are gorgeous, expensive, and completely incompatible with carry-on travel. Checked luggage with proper declaration is your only option. The specific 2026 update, drone equipment that visually resembles military hardware, is now flagged under the same discretionary framework at several major hub airports. Props feel like edge cases until they're yours getting taken. But the next item is something tens of millions of people carry daily. And most have no idea it has a hard federal limit they may already be exceeding. Item number 6, multi-tools with blades. Your daily carry multi-tool has a blade. That is the entire problem. The multi-tool market has exploded. Leatherman, Victorinox, Gerber, and dozens of others produce compact tools that have become standard items in pockets worldwide. The checkpoint rule has zero gray area. If it has a blade, it cannot go in the carry-on. Period. It doesn't matter that the blade is folded. It doesn't matter that it's recessed. It doesn't matter that the blade is only 2 inches long. Any knife blade on any tool in a carry-on bag will be confiscated. And in most cases, the entire multi-tool goes, not just the blade component. This trips up experienced travelers specifically because they've passed through before without issue. Screening is imperfect. Bags get missed. But in 2026, with advanced CT scanning now operational at the majority of major U.S. airports and rolling out across UK and Australian terminals, detection rates for small-bladed items have increased dramatically. TSA's own published data shows confiscation rates for small-bladed items up year over year since CT deployment began. But here's the twist. Bladeless multi-tools exist specifically for carry-on travel. Pliers, screwdrivers, bottle openers, various utility functions with zero cutting edge. These clear checkpoints legally. If you travel regularly with a multi-tool, this product category solves your problem completely. Multi-tools make sense as a risk the moment you know the blade rule. What comes next is harder to rationalize. It's perfectly legal in most jurisdictions, sold openly in major retailers, and yet it gets pulled from bags constantly. Item number 5, Self-defense sprays and personal safety devices. You bought it for safety. TSA will take it anyway. Here's the exact rule. Personal safety devices occupy a genuinely complicated space in TSA policy, and in 2026, the enforcement inconsistency across checkpoints has made the confusion worse. Here's the actual rule for pepper spray. One container, no larger than 4 fluid ounces, with a safety mechanism preventing accidental discharge, is permitted in checked luggage only. Carry-on, never, under any circumstances. Any size, any brand, any formula. The moment it goes through a carry-on X-ray, it's confiscated. But here's where it gets genuinely complicated. Tactical pens, reinforced metal pens designed for self-defense, exist in a policy gray zone. Some officers wave them through, some pull them. Whether yours gets confiscated depends entirely on the individual officer's read of the item under the same reasonably cause alarm discretionary standard. And this is where it gets crazy. Personal safety alarms with physical deterrent attachments, like spike or Talon keychains, are increasingly being flagged under updated 2026 guidance as potential weapons regardless of their marketed purpose. The same keychain alarm sold at Target and clipped to millions of bags is now appearing on confiscation logs at major hub airports. The 2026 edition that almost nobody has covered yet, certain stun gun accessories marketed as phone cases or wallet attachments, have been specifically called out in TSA internal briefings following a series of checkpoint incidents. If your phone case has a stun function, it does not fly. What most people don't realize is that after confiscation, agents aren't required to suggest you return to the ticket counter to check the item. Walk-up confiscations are permanent. The item goes into holding and is eventually destroyed or disposed of through government surplus channels. Self-defense items intersect personal safety with federal aviation law in a way that feels genuinely unfair. The next item is completely different. Not a weapon, not a hazmat issue. TSA takes it anyway, and the reason is one of the most outdated feeling rules on the entire list. Item number 4, snow globes and liquid-filled decorative items. It's an irreplaceable souvenir. TSA will take it without hesitation. Duty-free and tourist shopping creates a specific false confidence. You purchased it in a licensed shop, it's sealed and gift-wrapped, surely it's fine. For most items, yes. For liquid-filled decorative objects, snow globes being the most iconic example, no. The rule is unambiguous. Snow globes are only permitted in carry-on if they are approximately tennis ball-sized or smaller, and the liquid volume appears to be 3 ounces or less. Most commercially sold snow globes, the ones worth buying as meaningful keepsakes, are larger than this. If the globe exceeds tennis ball size, it's checked luggage or it's confiscated. No partial allowance, no exceptions for purchase receipts. The rule extends to a broader category travelers rarely consider: liquid-filled novelty keychains, decorative sealed bottles with liquid contents, souvenir items from European Christmas markets and Asian tourist destinations that contain gel or liquid design elements. The officer applies the 311 liquid standard to any liquid-containing item that can't be measured on site. What most people don't realize is that if volume can't be definitively verified below 3 ounces, the default is confiscation, not benefit of the doubt. Snow globes feel almost comedic as a security threat, which is exactly why the heartbreak hits so hard when it happens. The next item gets taken not because it's dangerous, but because of a single labeling issue that has a completely simple fix most travelers never learn. Item number 3, homemade food in non-original packaging. You packed homemade cookies. TSA's scanner sees an unknown substance. Food is generally permitted through checkpoints. For commercially packaged items in original retail containers, the process is straightforward. What creates confiscation risk is homemade food, food in non-original containers, and food with ambiguous physical profiles under X-ray. The scanner issue is real. Modern CT systems flag dense, granular, or powder-like substances for secondary screening regardless of the container. Homemade cookies in a Ziploc bag, loose trail mix, granola in a reusable container, these all produce X-ray profiles that trigger hand inspection. That inspection doesn't guarantee a favorable result. TSA agents aren't food scientists. If a homemade food item can't be cleared through available tools, the agent has full authority to confiscate it. The on-site appeal process is essentially non-existent. The specific 2026 concern: homemade cannabis-infused food products are federally illegal, regardless of state law or destination. TSA is a federal agency. Cannabis remains Schedule 1 at the federal level. If it's identified at a checkpoint, confiscation is the minimum consequence. It is also a potential criminal matter depending on quantity and jurisdiction. And this is where it gets crazy. TSA's own guidance states they aren't specifically searching for cannabis, but if it's discovered while investigating something else, involving law enforcement becomes mandatory. Pack food in original retail packaging wherever possible. For homemade items, keep quantities small and be prepared for secondary inspection. Food confiscations are frustrating because they're so avoidable with the right preparation. The next item catches experienced international travelers more than any other because it's completely legal where they came from and a clear violation the moment they land. Item number 2, agricultural and organic items on international arrivals. This one doesn't just get confiscated, it can cost you thousands in fines. This falls under Customs and Border Protection rather than TSA directly, but for what will be physically taken from you without warning at a US, UK, Canadian, or Australian entry point, it belongs on this list. In 2026, enforcement has been significantly upgraded across all 4 countries simultaneously. The core issue is biosecurity. Fresh fruits, vegetables, meats, soil-covered plant material, seeds, and certain dairy products are subject to strict agricultural import controls. Travelers who pick up local produce or specialty foods abroad and pack them assuming personal consumption intent provides protection are consistently wrong. Australia has the most aggressive agricultural screening in the world. Penalties for undisclosed items start at $222 Australian for a first infringement and escalate to thousands for deliberate non-declaration. Items are confiscated on the spot, no exceptions for sealed packaging or receipts. The United States has expanded detector dog programs at major international arrival terminals. These dogs are trained to detect a substantially broader list of organic compounds than most travelers assume. Vacuum-packed cured meats from Europe, purchased in licensed retail establishments, are frequently confiscated on U.S. arrival because of regulations around processing methods and country of origin disease status. What most people don't realize is that declaring an item doesn't automatically protect it. Declaring a prohibited item simply changes your legal exposure from potential criminal non-declaration to straightforward confiscation. You still lose the item either way. Agricultural confiscations carry financial penalties beyond the item itself, which makes them uniquely painful. But the number 1 item on this list generates more traveler outrage than anything else in 2026, and most people carrying it right now have no idea they're at risk. Item number 1, large amounts of cash and civil asset forfeiture. Carrying cash on a domestic flight is legal. Getting it back is not guaranteed. This is the most important item on the list and the most misunderstood intersection of aviation security and federal law that exists in the current travel environment. Here's the technical truth. There is no legal limit on how much cash a U.S. citizen can carry on a domestic flight. No TSA rule prohibits cash in carry-on luggage. A traveler can legally board with $50,000 in a bag. TSA will not arrest you for having cash. What TSA will do, and does routinely, is alert law enforcement when large cash amounts are discovered during screening. Once law enforcement is involved, civil asset forfeiture laws in many U.S. states allow officers to seize cash they believe may be connected to criminal activity, without charging you with a crime, without a conviction, without immediate legal process. The burden then shifts entirely to you to prove in court that your money is legitimate. And this is where it gets absolutely crazy. Investigative journalists and legal advocacy organizations have documented repeated cases where travelers with completely legitimate reasons for carrying cash had thousands of dollars seized at airport checkpoints and spent months fighting to recover it. Real estate transactions, business purchases, documented distrust of banking systems, none of it automatically protects you in the moment. In the UK, the situation mirrors this under the Proceeds of Crime Act. In Australia, amounts above 10,000 Australian dollars must be declared at border crossings, and undeclared sums are subject to seizure. Canada's threshold is 10,000 Canadian dollars with identical consequences for non-declaration. What most people don't realize is that you don't have to be doing anything wrong to lose your money. You have to be doing something that looks wrong to an officer operating with broad discretionary authority and a legal framework built to favor seizure. The practical guidance is clear. If you're traveling with substantial cash for legitimate reasons, carry documentation. A letter from your bank, a signed purchase agreement, an attorney letter. Have it accessible before you reach the checkpoint. It doesn't guarantee protection, but it fundamentally changes the legal conversation that follows. This final item captures the core message of everything on this list. TSA authority, and the authority of related federal and customs agencies, is broader than travelers believe, more discretionary than the published rulebook implies, and more consequential than losing a snow globe. The 10 items we covered today aren't just a packing checklist. They're a map of exactly where federal security authority and individual rights intersect in ways most people only discover when it's already too late. If this video just saved you from a painful checkpoint moment or gave you the knowledge to push back if it happens, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to stay ahead of every policy update and travel rule change we cover this year. Next video, 10 things customs agents look for that most travelers never consider. The gap between what you declare and what they already know will genuinely surprise you.